to Slow and Steady, the podcast where you get to follow along as we build products in public. Each week, we'll give you an honest peek into our lives as we share our struggles, our wins, and everything in between. I am Benedicte, and I am feeling appreciated.
And I'm Benedikt. Today is April 26th. This is episode number 137, and I'm feeling a little bit confused.
Confused? That's a new one for you.
I've been feeling so confused for the last week or so. Because we're still working on the sign-up flow I talked about 2 weeks ago. And at this stage, I'm feeling like this might be the most complicated feature in Userlist. It's just like so complicated. It's insane.
It's your code that's making you confused, or the design, or the interaction?
I guess it's a little bit of all of it. And I feel like maybe today we figured it out finally, but so to give a little bit more context, it's a multi-step sign-up flow, so it has like 5 pages with a couple of fields in there. And added to that, you are able to go back steps, like steps you already completed, you can go back to and edit and then continue. But you can't jump ahead, like you still have to complete them one by one in a way. Added to that is that we expect you to be able to drop out at any point and come back later and continue the process. So we have to kind of persist what you're doing, at least when you click the button to go to the next step. And added to that is we are basically a single page application that talks to our API. So it also has to work on the server side and on the front end and all of that. And it's surprisingly complicated to get all of this to work. In the initial phase, it was just like Leo working on the front end stuff and not persisting anything to the back end. And I guess the first week, he's been struggling with the same stuff that I'm now struggling now that I'm implementing the back end. And it's just like, if you try to mix everything into one, like tracking the progress and also tracking validation state of each of those steps, and then being able to go back and forth, like it gets ridiculously complex. Because I mean, the thing where it broke down, like yesterday we had a call, we thought we had figured it out and had a solution of how to implement it. Today I go into the code base, start implementing it. It works fine for like the linear, like step 1, 2, 3, save it, next, done. Works well. But the way I implemented it was basically checking validations based on the state you're currently in. And the current state is always the farthest you went. But then if you go back a state or two, like to page 1 or so, and edit it, I'm still running validations of step 5, which isn't filled out yet. So you can't edit step 1 anymore because your progress to step 5 and information for step 5 is missing. And it's just like, yeah, it's just a nightmare. And as I said, like, feels like it's the most complicated feature ever.
But are the steps dependent on each other? Is like something happening in step 2? Will that change step 4?
Luckily, no. So that's maybe that would make it even more complicated. So luckily, steps are independent. And we had another chat today, and I think now we figured it out. And it's once again a lesson in breaking things down into smaller parts and independent parts that are like just like coherent and like doing one single thing. So what we realized is that validation and progress tracking are separate tasks. They don't have anything to do with each other. So don't try to mix them into one. And the other thing is, like, the sign-up flow doesn't feel like a feature of the product because it's not inside the domain of email marketing or like marketing automation or customer data or anything. So the feature in itself feels like it doesn't belong, and therefore we were treating it as like a small thing on the side that doesn't, like, that should be require the least amount of code and be as simple as possible, and not like warrant like additional models, additional API endpoints, and all of that. And I think today we finally realized, no, signing up is an actual core feature of the product. We should probably treat it as one, and have like build as many API endpoints as we need, and have like as many models in the database, and like whatever, like treat it as a proper feature, and like not
take it seriously.
Take it seriously, basically, and not try not to come up with like simple or seemingly clever hacks to make it work with like less code or less models or less API endpoints. Just treat it like a ridiculously feature that has like 5 endpoints for every page, and saves them to their own model, and runs validations on their own model, and tracks progress separately. So that's what we're going to implement today and tomorrow, and hopefully we will not discover anything else that's actually causing problems. So
have you taken into consideration
okay.
when
I'm scared.
when Jane wants step 3 to become step 5?
Yes, because that only changes like the progress tracking part then. So we just have to move stuff around on one part, and the steps are independent. So it should work. And also introducing a new step is basically just like adding a new endpoint, adding a new form, and putting it somewhere into the state machine. So I guess it works.
But if somebody has broken off on step 3, and then when they come back, step 3 is now the content of step 5,
right.
Because I have been dealing with this for POW. That's why I'm asking, because because I need people, like the app doesn't really work if I don't have any information about their, menstrual cycle or the tag that they choose for the menstrual cycle. So I've been going around in circles with the same thing, because I want to break it into several steps to not make it so kind of overwhelming when they come there. But then I'm like, oh yeah, I need like proper progress and states and all of the things that you've been talking about.
You're raising a good point. Yeah.
Because I can just feel, at least you are more people on the team, like I can feel like that's like 2 months down the road, it's like, oh, but step 5 should be step 2. Like it makes much more sense.
Yes.
And
damn it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We're workshopping it. No, just kidding. I'm just throwing another something into this, but yeah.
I mean, I guess like given that we have like validations out of the picture in this case, I guess we have to figure out a way on the state machine to figure out what's the not yet completed step that needs to be done before we can move forward. Basically look at the current step, make sure all previous steps are done.
Mm-hmm.
And if so, move to the next one.
And if the steps get the unique identifier that's not like a number, then they can switch places, because then you can actually see if they've completed step, where did you hear about us, instead of step 3.
Right. But I guess what you're saying is like right now we're considering, you're basically just like looking at the last step they are on, like the last step they completed. But I guess what you're saying is like persist or figure out the state of all steps and then figure out which ones are missing.
Yes, because if they have completed step 2, 3, and 5 of the new flow, but not 4 of the new flow because that was 5 before, then you need to send them into that step and not the other steps.
Right.
Or
thanks for talking with me about this.
Or you could just pretend that will never happen, and when somebody comes along and wants to swap out the steps, you'd be like, nah.
Yeah, but I mean, I can tell you how this will play out. Is like we'll be, yeah, sure, no problem. Switch it around, and then a week later we get customer support requests with like, I can't sign up, like I can't make it's stuck somewhere and something weird is happening, and we spend another day trying to figure out, and then realize, oh, back then I remember that conversation I had on the podcast about this. Should probably have done it from the get-go. Because this sounds something I probably forget in a week or two.
Yeah. But it's very interesting how, like, some of these, as you said, it's like, oh, we're just going to change the sign up flow a little bit. And it actually turns out to be a bigger thing than one would imagine. I feel like that happens quite a lot.
Yes. And especially with stuff like this that doesn't sound like it's core to the domain. And it happens over and over again. Like I think I could treat something like as a small thing on the side that's like just like bolted on, but that usually causes more problems than just like, as I said, like treating it as a full proper feature that deserves the same attention as any other feature on the app. So yeah. But thanks for pointing out that problem with the with the incomplete state. I have to think about this. Yeah.
See, this is what's so great about you being ahead. So now I've like thrown this out there, and then when you've solved it in like 6 months, when I need to solve it again, I'll be like, Benedikt, how did you solve that? What models did you use? What kind of state machine did you use? Like, what's the
right? And I can tell you all the things that we forgot, even after this conversation.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Done anything else in the last couple of weeks?
Well, it already happened a little bit longer ago, but since we didn't really have like proper updates in the last episode, I had a nice mini vacation over Easter.
Woohoo!
Woo! Yeah, visited my parents. So it was like a longish weekend. We had Friday and Monday off in addition to the weekend, and went there and visited them. And we had just the nicest weather on all days. So we spent a lot of time outside, did a lot of, well, not really hiking, but went out into nature, and yeah, it was just super nice, and had good food, and overall a good time. And Monday night when we got back into the car and drove home, I was like, I actually feel relaxed, like it was a proper vacation, and that was kind of nice. So
does that mean you didn't have to take out your laptop and do any support, or were you completely off?
I didn't take out my laptop at all. I think I replied to a couple of messages on Slack on Friday because we had a new kind of promising customer sign up, and they had some questions. So I was basically channeling, like sending messages to Jane, who was then relaying that information to the customer. But overall, I didn't really work and didn't really pay attention what's going on the business, and things were running well and didn't break, so it was okay. And
awesome.
yeah,
I'm just gonna throw in the enthusiasm here, because like this didn't happen last time you wanted to take some time off. Like, you know, that you really felt confident that the team could do the things, and there wasn't suddenly a server issue or anything like you had to open your laptop for. So I think that's a major win and a major step forward in being a business owner, and not just a
I guess luck played into it as well, but overall, yeah, I'm pretty happy. And
but what do they say? Luck favors the prepared mind.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe.
But kind of related to that, like talking about luck and server issues, we had an outage earlier today, once again, not caused by us, but by an upstream provider. I'll just name them. It's Heroku. They had some outage issues.
Oh, I saw that on Twitter this morning, that somebody was saying, like, they commented on their update, which was like, oh, so this is out and that is out. So basically everything is out. Somebody, I think it was the founder of Banner Bear, who also seems to be on Heroku, and everything was down. So
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what exactly happened. Like the status update they posted did not sound like it would affect like running applications, more like deploying new ones and stuff like that. But like obviously, it affected running application, and we had like 1 hour of downtime or so, a little bit more. Um, and just like I mean, I've been a huge Heroku fanboy for the last 10 years or so. And that's starting to fall down a little bit. Like let's put it another way. It takes more and more work to be excited about Heroku. And I mean, there are basically two things keeping me on Heroku right now. One is Rails Autoscale, Adam McRae's add-on, which isn't available anywhere else. And analysis paralysis by looking at alternatives. Like those are the two things that keep us on Heroku at this point. Because I definitely missed the add-on for autoscaling, and I'm like just looking at all the other options out there. I'm not entirely sure which one to pick. So
And it feels like
yeah.
all the major one has downtime. So it's gonna be a hard decision, I guess. Also,
Yeah, like I mean, I'm realistic enough to know that no matter what we pick, there can be issues, and there probably will be issues. But it feels like Heroku's having more and more issues lately. Like thinking back to I think November until today, like I think we had some major problem every other month. And at this point, like you're starting to question, like, sure, Heroku has been around for like forever. It feels like they're an established company and they probably know what they're doing. But at this rate, like you could also move to a new provider that's just figuring things out and will probably have like problems here and there. But again, like if it happens every couple of weeks, then it's basically the same thing as it's on Heroku right now. So why that argument's becoming a little bit moot. So
but it also might be that they are having some maturity and growing pains, and then in another, 6 months they've upped a level, like they will be a lot better again. Like they might be having some legacy issues since they have been around for so long. And then if they work
maybe
through them, they will become more stable. Or maybe they never work through them and these things will keep on happening.
that's exactly the point. Like that's or actually the thing I'm wondering. Like I'm okay with like giving them the benefit of the doubt that they are, as you said, like working through stuff and overall improving stability. So the first couple of downtimes, I was like, yeah, okay. I mean, stuff happens. I'm sure it would happen if I'd be running everything ourselves and stuff like that. But combine that with the overall lack of progress on almost all fronts there, I don't know. It doesn't quite feel right. It feels like it's, I mean, maybe getting less and less attention. Maybe I don't know. Like it doesn't feel like the downtime is because they're releasing a new feature and something slightly went wrong. I mean, that would be kind of exciting. That at least you know that they are working on new stuff. But so far, it doesn't seem to be the case. So you get downtime without getting any benefits from it. I'm not sure how to phrase it.
No, I think I get where you're coming from. I kind of get that feeling.
Yeah, you kind of feel like is it time to jump ship, like more or less. It's not moving faster. It doesn't seem to be moving anymore. And now
But
it
is it
also looks
sinking?
like water.
That's the
Yeah. Now it's already starting to have like some water leaks here and there. So you start to think about maybe it's time to look elsewhere. But as I said, like during that hour or so earlier today, I started looking around a little bit, and I'm like, I don't know. none of the options really excite me, and there's a lot of uncertainty. And like, will it just be the same with a different name on it, or is it not mature enough and have problems because of that? Because that's also something I'm maybe a little bit burned. A couple of years ago, like my first product, when I started out with it, I was using one of the competitor products that were up and coming back then. It was cheaper, it was more flexible, it was overall nice. I liked the team, were generally nice people. But like, I think 3 years in, they shut down because while they had like a good technical basis, they got their pricing wrong from day one. And were basically not able to make it sustainable and had to shut down. And that was like a major headache. So that makes me very anxious about what provider to pick. And especially, I mean, there are a couple of new ones coming up that are basically being like, hey, come over from Heroku. We're the better, newer version of it. And it sounds
like,
kind of
how
nice.
long are you going to be around? Like,
but it exactly does. Like, if I switch to you, how long are you going to stay around, and how well have you figured things out already? So those are the two questions.
I guess this is the time to kick it over to you, dear listener. Are you really happy with a Heroku competitor? DM Benedikt with your suggestions.
Definitely. I'd love to hear suggestions. And also maybe warnings of like, please don't use this particular service, it doesn't work. So any input is welcome, more than welcome. I'm not saying we're moving soonish, but we're starting at least to make a plan and come up with a solution that we can eventually migrate to. So yeah, that's that part. In other news, two nice things that happened last week was I got to inbox 0 in like first time in 6 months or so.
Woo!
I had like
I kind of given up on that at this point.
Yes, I was at that stage as well. They get like 20 or so emails sitting in there, and a lot of them had to do with taxes and accounting and overall business administration stuff. And at some point, I guess it was even the week before, I sat down and I was like, okay, I'm going to work through all of them and look through my tax returns for 2020 and like all the questions my accountant had and all the other stuff that was piled up in there, and just like get it all done. And I got to inbox 0. And then 2 days after, I'm getting the tax returns for 2021 to review. And now I'm again at inbox 1. Well,
at least you got it done before the new ones. I feel at least when I finally get stuff like that, like I don't have that kind of emails in my stuck around my inbox. I think though, I'm not sure. It's kind of a little bit of a bankruptcy at the moment. I just need to archive things that aren't really that important. But getting a lot of those like admin things done like frees up so much creative space in my brain. Like even though I haven't done anything, it's just like it's there and it's nagging you, and I know the research behind that and everything, but like sometimes you don't have the time to fix all of the admin stuff. At least I've had a year of a lot of admin, and I'm feeling now that I've kind of gone through some of the most important ones, and I can just like feel my brain being like, yeah, work. Like I want to create stuff. I want to do more things. Like it actually, yeah, it's worth it, even though it's a pain. And it's really annoying when you do it and it's like, oh, it took an hour. Could have done this 6 months ago, but
yes, exactly. I already made a promise to myself to do this tax return review and signing and all of it this Friday morning. So I should be at inbox 0 again by Friday afternoon. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Admin Friday. That's what I do too. So I do admin every Friday morning now, and that's been really helpful because then I know I'll get to it. And then I've been like working through all my admin stuff instead of feeling like I should do it all the time. Like, oh, I should. I'm like, okay, I'll I'll make a dent in it on Friday and make another dent in it next Friday. Slow and
Yes.
steady. And finally I'd gone
Yes.
through like all of the major ones and I'm like, oh, the only like admin I had to do the other Friday was like send an invoice. I was like, yes. This is where I want to be at.
Yes. I should. I guess that's what I'm trying as well. Like, just like prioritize it, that type of work, like 1 day a week, and be sure to get to it and get it out of the way. So yeah, the last thing I want to mention is over the last couple of weeks, I did a couple of calls with one of my buddies from years ago, who now happens to run a software company as well. It's called Datacator, and it's a fancy ETL platform in a way. Like, it allows you to connect to data sources, pull data out of it in real time, transform it, and send it elsewhere.
What's ETL stand for?
I think it's extract, transform, load.
Okay.
So it just, in this particular use case, what we figured out together is basically how their tool can allow our customers to connect their application to user list without actually touching their application's code. So the way it works is you connect Datacator to your database, and it will use like depending on the database system, either does like recurring queries or hook into some hooks in the database that basically send you change request data, or what's the name? I don't know. There's a fancy term for it, but basically it sends over the change log, and then Datacator takes that information, transforms it depending on like based on rules that you set up, and then it can send it to an HTTP endpoint. So what we did is we created a small sample application and then hooked it up. So whenever there's a new user in your database, it would take the information, build a payload that user list understands, and sends it out. And we, as I said, we did it over a couple of weeks, like by having a call every so often. And last week we finally recorded a video explaining the process and posted it to YouTube. And I think there will be a blog post about this soonish that we can publish to the website and send to our mailing list. It was a fun project. Like, it was fun working with a buddy that I haven't talked to much in the last couple of years. And it's actually a useful thing, like, because I know a couple of our customers or potential customers don't want to integrate user list into their application and just like connect it to the database, and we finally have at least one solution to do it. So yeah, that's kind of cool.
So it's a little lower level than Zapier, but kind of same type of thing, but it like what works directly on a database instead of having to have an API that is like created. Because I guess for Zapier there needs to be like a API already created or an integration thing already created. But here you can hook it up onto a database that you own and not have to.
Exactly. And I guess, I mean, I'm not sure what Stefan, my buddy, would say to comparing Datacator to Zapier. I'm not entirely sure he'd like that, because I feel like even this particular use case with like connected users is probably too little data for what they usually handle. Like, I feel like their tool is mostly for like big data applications that like process huge amount of data. But it was a fun exercise, and the video turned out pretty nice. And one thing I tried this time, like, because we talked about like how video production is kind of annoying and like takes a lot of time, so this time I tried this different approach. So I basically just recorded my screen really slowly without talking about it, just like doing the interaction I wanted to show, super slow. And then I took all those recordings and cut them up and rearranged them how I needed them, and then recorded voiceover afterwards. And that turned out to be relatively efficient and easy, because previously I was always trying to basically record my voice and the interactions at the same time. And that usually ended up with me being a lot of wait, now I have but by recording the voiceover afterwards, I was just like recording it sentence by sentence, basically. And it turned out as a short 2.5 minute video that has all of the information in there and feels pretty concise and didn't take so long to produce because I didn't have to restart that many times. Or, well, I re-recorded the sentences a couple of times, but it was only like one sentence and I didn't have to do like the entire segment from scratch. So maybe this is my trick for doing those more efficiently in the future. We see.
I think you could also do it kind of in one go, because you can split audio from your video afterwards. So you could also do it so you kind of say the sentence you want to do and then you code it, and then you split the tracks from each other, and then you match it up, and then you have kind of your sentence and your code kind of next to each other in that video. And then when you split it up, you just cut out the video part that is where nothing is happening and move that up. I think that's how also some of these people do it that do kind of more screencasts and not live coding, because then you don't, as you said, you don't get the while you're typing. You just say like, and then we're gonna now we're gonna show you how to X, and then you code X, and then they just like move the video up a little bit, especially if face is not, well, I guess your face could be on there as well, but it will probably look weird that somebody's typing and then it looks like they're not typing. But for screencasts, usually your face is not on there, so you are pretty unlimited in how you want to do that. And then also sometimes they speed up the video or the screencast part, right? So the coding is much faster than actual coding, and just make it work with the sentence you already said. Yeah, many ways of doing that. But that's cool. It's always good to find a workflow so you're like, oh, I can do this again without like dreading it for weeks and weeks.
Yes. I guess that's the magic sauce ingredient there, because I've been dreading recording this video for a while, at least for a week or so. And in the end, it took an hour or so, not that much time. So next time I do this and I follow the same process, it doesn't feel as daunting anymore. So maybe there will be more videos. We see.
Ooh. Okay. I think that's your longest update ever, Benedikt. I like it.
And before we started recording, I was like, I don't know. I have no idea what I did in the last weeks.
Well, you've been working on the sign-up flow, obviously.
It doesn't feel like working. I feel like more like banging my head against the table for the past week.
Which often results in feeling like you haven't really done anything, because you...
Right.
Like it's been a lot of thinking and not so much shipping, right?
Right.
So yeah. Well.
So what's up with you?
What's up with me? Well, I said I was feeling appreciated, and that's because this week I am the person of the week at Smashing Magazine, which kind of came out of the blue. I just like woke up Monday morning and I was like, what is this? Like, what's happening? Were I supposed to give them something? Like what? But it turns out to be a thing they do where you get to be featured on their homepage. And that felt pretty cool. But what felt even cooler, and why I feel so appreciated, I guess, is that a lot of people have retweeted and like, oh, well deserved, and like giving like good, compliments, and you retweeted with a nice little tweets, little quote. So feeling very appreciated. And it's nice. It's always nice to feel appreciated. It feels good. I don't know what other, lack of a better word, appreciated and feeling good. So that was a lot of fun to see that happening. I do have on the block, is that a word? Well, anyway, I'm going to do an article for Smashing Magazine at some point, but I kind of been postponing it. So there will be more Smashing Magazine fun in my future, hopefully.
Nice.
But other than that, I kind of wrote in my notes, I wrote back to reality, and then in my head, it was just like back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. I don't know. Some sentences in my head are just stuck together with songs. Like anytime somebody says stop, it's like stop in the name of, like, my brain cannot not do that. So seems like Eminem has gotten stuck in my brain on the back to reality sentence. But anyway, I kept on the bracelet from Microconf after party, which feels like something I did when I went to festivals way back when in my youth. Like, I'm walking around with this bracelet from the after party. It says just like a paper bracelet and not like even a proper fabric one. They keep like having it on there to remind me of both the fun I had at the conference and always also to like keep thinking about POW. And like, as probably folks have realized by now, like, I trying to figure out like how to approach this, how to do it, like where do I want to go, like what direction do I want to take it. You asked me, does it have to be, end-to-end decrypted? And I'm like, I don't know. So I keep on thinking about it. I'm doing some kind of reading again about menstrual cycles. I did a Reddit thread in our menstruation where I was just asking, kind of open, like, what apps are you using? What is good? What is bad? What do you want? And then ended up having a really nice conversation with one of the users in there that kind of energized me on the whole planning again. I've been mentioning that before, but like planning and figuring out how we can use that, use the data to plan better. So, but other than that, like, nothing to report coding wise or like revenue wise or anything like that, which, it's starting to be a little embarrassing. Like, at some point this needs to move forward or just like not at all. But yeah, it's been at least like thinking, I feel like there's things going on in my brain that will land hopefully in the next month. But then on the Queen side, as I said, person of the week, which feels good. I feel like that is from my Gatsby work. I also had somebody book a Gatsby emergency call last week, or actually booked it during the Easter, but we had it last week and that was a lot of fun. I really enjoy helping people one-on-one. And that's when I realized also when I was trying to do courses or was testing out courses and boot camps, is like what I really enjoy and where I get a lot of energy is from that, like one-on-one, helping people one-on-one. So I'm trying to figure out like how can I do more of that, mentorship, or just like trying to sell more of these Gatsby emergency calls. He was very much into the whole brand and like calling it an emergency call, but I've had some people maybe kind of hint that like emergency call feels a little too much, like they don't want to admit that they need help that bad. So if I can package it in ways that will be helpful to people, or something that they will book, because I think it's super helpful. Like, he got unblocked on a last feature that he was doing on a Gatsby site for a friend, and like that was the last thing needed to be done before actually like wrapping up work. So I think that felt very beneficial to him to like get that work done and like realizing how to do that feature in the Gatsby way. He was coming from kind of WordPress side of things and like moving into more headless world. So that was great. That got me also deep into related content, which was what we were doing on Gatsby. So I did a lot of code on that for my own site last week. I also did tags. So I feel like the Queen site is kind of up where it needs to be for SEO and that type of thing, and keeping people on the page, reading more than just one email, and hopefully then signing up for my emails. And in all of this work, realized I need to do more sales and outreach for the Queen stuff in the same way that I probably should for POW as well. Things just doesn't sell themselves. I don't know why.
Yeah, surprise.
Surprise. So we've been reaching out to a lot of the headless CMSs, trying to talk to the maintainers of the headless CMSs Gatsby's plugins, to talk to them about how are they getting support, like where are they figuring out how to do and maintain, or like being updated on their plugins, and is there space for us there to deliver either, as we've talked about before, done for you plugins, or some other kind of service where we can help the maintainers of the plugins at different companies. because I think a lot of them have a lot of work, and they also have to keep tabs on a lot of different technologies. So I feel like there is space there for us to kind of be their Gatsby experts, their Gatsby go-to, so they can go to us and get help when they need to update their plugins or like outsource that to us. So having at least 1 or 2 talks a week set up now to talk to them, and then also obviously try to sell things to them if it seems like a good fit, but
Yeah.
also just trying to understand the process better and like where we can fit. And then this week, as a prize to myself, I guess, I am allowed to code on Gatsby Transformer Embed when I've done my admin and my sales work, which is my oldest Gatsby project. I realized that I actually had the alpha come out in October 2018. And I did a webinar with Jason Langsdorff when he was at Gatsby in October 2019 about the process. It was released in January 2019. So, I mean, it's getting old, like, 2019. I mean, it's been a while. And after Christmas, I think I mentioned it, suddenly jumped from 1,500 downloads to 3,000 downloads a week on the NPM registry. And I didn't realize that until I decided I should give it more attention. So that was kind of cool to see after deciding, like, I need to give this more attention and, like, put everything I've learned about Gatsby back into this plugin and upgrade it. And then I saw, oh, well, it also has become more popular. So it's a good time to do it. And I was like, oh, I need to do like a big, revamp. It needs to be like totally new. Everything I've learned with doing Node code or JavaScript on the server type code and all of that. But then I was like, no, I'm gonna do this slow and steady. I feel like the podcast and talking to you every week, it's rubbing off. So today I fixed 2 things I consider a bug. And then I also fixed it so that it can work with the MDX plugin in addition to the Markdown plugin from Gatsby. And I can ship all of this after our recording, which feels pretty good.
Nice.
But I need to set up semantic release for this plugin, which I have as part of my plugin starter that folks can download and use, because I feel like always when I do something, that's where it stops, right? Having to like manually release, it's like it's never gonna happen. So I guess I'm gonna manually release this version and then set up semantic release so that it's ready for my next fix. But it's been so long, and some of the fixes I've done, I'm wondering if they're like breaking changes because people might have been relying on the functionality. So I'm not 100% sure what version number to go for.
Well, when in doubt, major version, right?
Major version. Because my thinking was like, oh, I'll do this major revamp and call that 1.0.0, like, version 1, because it's still in, I think it's like on 0.1 something is like the version number of it. But then now that I'm doing this like, slow and steady approach, is like maybe I should just jump it up to 1 right away, and so that these are kind of signaled as breaking changes, and then hopefully, even though I would call them fixes. So yeah.
I mean, there's the train of thought that everything like below 1.0 is basically
don't trust it.
Wild West.
Yeah. So I might go for that approach. I might go for that approach and just do like an 0.2 version, at least call it a new feature and not just a fix, and let's see how that goes.
Yeah, but I mean, the other part of that is, and I'm guilty of this myself, I guess, like a lot of libraries and plugins and all of it are staying in 0.1 whatever versions for way too long, and like you're kind of afraid to go to 1.0 because it feels like a major step, and like I don't know, like a launch or something like that. But the flip side is that we're shipping beta software for years, I guess.
Yeah, and it's because I might want to break kind of how you configure options and stuff for like the next major version, but that could be 2. Like it doesn't have to be 1. So I could like say it's 1 now, but then I think I'll find more of these fixes that might feel like major changes. So suddenly we're gonna be on like version 10 before the end of the month. If I'm gonna treat every fix as fix that bug that is not a feature as a major change.
Yeah. I don't know.
I thought I'll give it a little go because I can see links to a lot of the repositories using the plugin right in the network graph on GitHub. So I thought I'll do a little bit of investigation, like checking out how people have been using it, and if I see a lot of people like been using this bug, then I'll make it a major change. But if I don't find anyone, then I'll probably just make it a minor or a middle change. Well, there's this major, minor, fix. No, major, the middle number.
Major, minor patch.
Yeah, well, they
Minor
just
is
change
the
it.
middle number, right?
They've just changed the wording for it, which I think is breaking update fix. No, breaking feature fix, I think is the new one. Which is interesting. So I might make them features, which is not, doesn't make sense. It's fixes, or is it? Anyway, this is going to be too long of a discussion. Anyway, I've been having a lot of fun doing that because it's getting to know markdown transformations a lot more. And as with many things like encryption and also this kind of parsing of text, I have been thinking like this is like really hard. This is like for the real developers, not for me. And then I am at this point where I'm like, well, this isn't that hard. Like I just need to figure it out. And I'm having a lot of fun figuring it out and like understanding how the whole system, because there's a unified project, I think it's called Unified, and under there's like transformation of text with, or trees, I guess is their whole thing. So you can do like markdown to HTML or markdown to PDF, or regular text, like natural language to markdown to, like, you can transform between all these different syntax trees. And it's a lot of fun figuring it out and understanding which packages work with which packages. Obviously, it's also a mess because it's JavaScript. So there are a ton of packages and markdown, and they all have to like work together. And then with Gatsby, we can't use the ESM imports yet. And all of or Unified have decided to change all of the whole ecosystem over to the new way of importing JavaScript modules. So when I'm going to use it inside of Gatsby, I have to go and like find the latest version that allows me to require modules. So a lot of detective work as well as like technical understanding. But while I was working on it, I was like, well, this is also useful for POW, since I'm doing this where people can write with tags, and I'm doing that like really badly now with just like regexing some really bad regex. And I'm realizing that I can probably do a better job of using these packages and doing it more in like a tree way, or like a syntax tree type solution. So it doesn't feel like, it feels like I'm like dancing around POW with a lot of the work I'm doing, even though I'm not working on POW. Like it seems like my interests are kind of aligning in some weird way. I guess not weird.
That's cool.
I guess that's what happens. Like you have interests, and it seems like I have a lot of different interests, but they've been consistent for quite some years now, and they're kind of starting to work together. I guess that's quite natural progression of interests, but it feels good in some way. Yeah,
nice.
I don't know, that was a little bit of a rambler there at the end, but there's a lot of fun stuff in this Unified space. I think it's Unified. I'm really bad at remembering terminology. We'll link it in the description.
Unifiedjs.com.
Yes, unifiedjs.com.
Yeah,
I think that's the overarching thing. And then there's the MDest, and then there's the HEst, which is like hypertext, abstract syntax tree, and then it's the MD, abstract syntax tree. It's not MDest, which I read it for a really long time. And I wasn't until you were talking about abstract syntax trees where I was like, oh, now I get it.
I mean, I might be biased because I'm doing this so much recently, but I feel like wrapping your head around like parsers and abstract syntax trees and interpreters, or like just like transforming trees, feels a little bit like a computer science superpower, because like a lot of stuff just boils down to this. So yeah.
Yeah, it feels like one of those things that I kind of shied away from for some reason. As I've said, same thing that I did with kind of encryption there. It's like just some things that I decided like those things are hard. And for some reason I decided like I shouldn't go down that road. But now that I'm doing it, like I'm really enjoying it. And I think maybe it has to do with actually back at university, I think we did these kind of trees for like, compiling code, which I still don't find very interesting, but having the ability to transform from like one type of tree to another type of tree in this kind of in more of the front end world, I guess, for me is much more interesting. Like I can see the transformation and I can see why I need it, while I'm like, I don't know, like, do we need another compiler for like, do I need to learn how to compile my own JavaScript code? I don't really like, I didn't find that interesting at university, but
Yeah.
then now
Yeah.
there's actually the use case and I'm like, well, this is interesting. Now it's
Right.
interesting.
Yeah. And at the core, it's the same thing. Like one thing just like outputs an executable, and the other one HTML, which in comparison sounds weird, but I mean the process is similar-ish at least. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that was a lot of the stuff that we did at university, and I guess it was pre-web. It wasn't pre-web. I mean, the web was around, but I think they learn more web-related things in university now at the same kind of program. But I've heard some rumors maybe they don't. But for me, like a lot of these things are a lot more interesting when I can
Yeah.
play with it in a more kind of immediately visual or like immediately useful for me in my web world than when it was more kind of just abstract, if you ever wanted to do like build your own programming language, or if you like these like way lower level things that I never really found that interesting. But maybe give me another couple of years, I'm here writing my own compiler because I've gotten into these trees so much.
Yeah, it's fun. Like I haven't written my own compiler yet, but uh, yeah, as I said, like it feels a little bit detached from reality for the most part, because again, who needs another programming language? But you're right. Like just like working with trees and transforming stuff and putting one thing in and getting out something else is kind of exciting.
It's very exciting, and doing it in a very kind of structured way that will be kind of future proofed, or it will, or not future, but like people have been thinking about this problem, right? So
Yeah.
why am I just like regexing wildly for some tags in Pow's text? Like there are good ways of doing this, and learning and using, other, like building upon other, like the shoulder of giants or whatever. It feels
Yep.
good when I can finally find the correct theory and applying it. And I feel like that is one of the things that are really slowing me down with POW, is that I am having a really hard time on how to really do the analytics good. And I know I need to do something with like what was it called? Time series analysis, and it's the same thing there, where I'm like, I know if I just like start digging into it, it will probably be more interesting, and it will probably not be out of my reach, because I did really well in maths and statistics and stuff like that back in university. But it's been so long, like it feels like a little bit like too far out of my comfort zone. But now that I'm playing with these trees, like, okay, got that down. And then maybe I can start playing more with kind of the analysis part of POW. And I think if I get that, kind of wrap my head around it more, then like that will unlock a lot of the other work, because it feels like, I don't know, it's just, it's just like a
Yep.
tiny bit out of reach, and I just need to spend some time, like you said, like treat it seriously, and actually, I'm going to learn this subject matter, not just try to find a quick way of doing it, but actually learn like I did with encryption. Like I actually sat down and did a lot of work with encryption, and I understood how to use it in the best way. And now I'm doing that with this stuff, and then hopefully also with the analytics, which I think it's time series analysis. If somebody listening knows like what type of algorithms I should be using or strategies I should be using for predicting future menstrual cycles, please let me know what I should Google, or send me some great book, article, whatever tips. I'd be happy. Guess that's it.
I guess that's it for this week, yeah.
Getting inside our brains today with sign of
totally, yeah.
syntax trees, all of that good stuff.
So I guess we see you around the interwebs.
Yes, see you around the interwebs next week.
Bye.